Yeah. Now, what were we saying?
Just thinking about the pros and cons it brings in general to society. Just good things like being able to track where your kid is and constant communication, but at the same time, it takes away that adventure factor, and kids are less likely to go outside because they have all this technology and video games in the house.
I really think that technology is progressing way too quickly to keep up with human evolution. Because if you think about it, one of the early species of human, I'm not gonna try to pretend like I remember the exact name, Australopithecus, probably not, but um,
That actually sounds about right.
so when like human like type species started to make tools, we would make a tool and stick to that same tool for about a million fucking years. So when we first made our first like cutting tools, once we found that out, well, not us, but when we found that out, our early ancestors, they stuck with that for about a million years, and then as time went on, they made a little like attachment to that tool, and that lasted for about a million years. But then as we started to like our species started to become more like to Homo sapiens, we started to our technology increased at a more progressive and faster rate. So if you think about it, just what under it was around 100. I don't know exactly. You'll have to look it up. When the Wright brothers first flew their first airplane, how long ago was that?
I
I
think it
don't
was
know.
like 1912 ish, around then,
so
maybe a little bit earlier,
so you think about
turn of the century.
then until now, which if you think about it, that's like a blink of an eye in time perspective, So, and then you take what you were talking about, being able to track your kids, track other things. We're not, as a society, like, are we really even used to it? Like, are we even like really prepared for how like fast shit's gonna keep like progressing?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. People are constantly thinking of the next invention, but we don't really know if they all bring good things to the table.
All right.
Because I know people pass this fact around way too much, but from the time that they did fly that first airplane to the first nuke being dropped out of a plane was like 40 years. So from the time computers are, really reaching what they are in consumer cell phone technology, it's getting so advanced with GPS, like 4K video recording, games, that in 50 years, who knows what's going to be us? We may be integrated with these machines. We could have interfaces into our brain.
I was watching this video on YouTube recently from that Curse Gazette channel, that Science channel,
That's a good channel.
and the most recent video that they uploaded had to deal with the end of aging, and because they described aging as not as a biological issue but a physics issue. They described it as like a car breaking down, like over time each you can keep replacing a small thing here and there, but eventually if you don't take care of it, it's going to fall apart. No, just through time and usage, just like the human body. And they brought up the fact that, let's say that we were able to stop aging, there will still be like 80-year-old, like older people, and those people, they said that because their bodies are so already worn out, they're gonna die anyways. But like, let's say someone our age, in our early to mid 20s.
So it's like when you catch it in time. So
Right.
if that technology were to come full circle and you were, say, 35, you'd be in the optimal window to lock yourself in.
Right, and they also brought up good points. Is would we like right now, because our whole mindset is we're gonna die eventually. So like that's been the same for all of human history. Like we know that we're gonna die. So we plan our depending on what time period you live in, 60 to 80 years around you have an idea of how you're going to be spending those. But what if we could live? They described around what if we could live to around 150 to 200 years? How would that affect how we treat our everyday lives? Are we going to spend more time figuring out what we actually want to do with our lives? Because now, if you really think about it, it seems like going through school, you go through school, and then you're like, fuck, I got to figure out what I want to do. Because, hey, you got to start saving up because you're going to start getting old. But that's thinking we're going to be starting to get old and 50,
Right.
start noticing shit, 40 to, above.
It's even worse here because, like in Europe, they take a year off after high school to figure out what they want to do with their lives, and then after college, they take a year off.
Do they really?
Yeah, that's kind of a normal thing to do.
Because,
But here, it's one thing right into the next. Right after you finish high school, that whole summer you're getting prepared to go off to college, and after college, it's where's your full time job going to be at, and getting your first place, and it all is pre-planned almost. It's like society has these just archetypes that you fall into. You have to, get a certain amount of money, get an apartment, get yourself settled in, get furniture, and then you're stuck with the utility bills, cell phone, credit
Right.
card. You just get stuck in the system.
so if we could theoretically live around to, let's say, 150, 200 years, would we put as much weight into all of that as we do now? I don't think so, because
Things would be a lot more spread out. I could see people spending maybe like 5 to 10 years, like maybe throughout their 20s and 30s, just reading a lot and figuring out what they want to learn. And
the whole education system would probably have to be rethought, because really, if you think about it, when we okay, let's say high school, most people who graduate high school are 17, 18 years old. So let's just round that up to, like 20, and let's say the average person, I don't know what the average lifespan is in the US right now, but let's say um, we'll just force it up to 80. So really, just going through, the for the most part, the required, like everyone usually mainly does it. Everyone goes to high school, so like 20 80ths. That's what one fourth of, no, yeah, one fourth of your life already.
yeah,
So let's say we live to 200 years old. That means if we want to follow that same, like scale, we would have to be in school for what, like 40, 60 years, something like that.
maybe. Or it just could be you just get done with school and then you just have all this extra time to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
I mean, you could just spend like, 75, 80 years just raising vegetables and animals at a farm, and then, go live in a city because it's not like you have only 60 to 70 years maybe in our current lifespans.
That's this is kind of switching gears, but it made me think about it, because I also watched a series about U.S. history. So I guess one big reason why early on we were having such issues with basically close to what we're having now, with cities expanding, but there still also being a large agricultural portion of our country. Some of our early founding fathers, they believed that the United States should not have any sort of international trading whatsoever. It should just be small agricultural communities.
Oh,
While
so it was supposed to be just a big widespread community of just shared vegetable growers
yes,
and
oh yeah,
farmers.
there was supposed to be no big government. No, like the federal government was just nothing.
Interesting. I know at the beginning there was a general thought of minimal government, but I didn't know it was to that extent. Like the plan was just to stay as like almost little villages and neighbors all over the place.
I mean, it wasn't everyone didn't think like that, because I mean, if everyone did, the U.S. would probably look drastically different right now.
We wouldn't have gigantic international airports and the biggest skyscrapers besides
Right.
Dubai.
All right. Yeah. That's a whole.
They're making
another
their own
story.
islands. They're on a new level. We don't make islands over here.
What do you think? What do you think's gonna happen? Because look, I anticipate there being some huge like oil crisis in the next well, once we kind of depend on oil less, I expect obviously Saudi Arabia to lose a lot of influence just because their oil doesn't,
Right,
you
that's
know.
where all the money is coming from.
And then what's going to happen with because Dubai? I really don't think that that's sustainable.
No,
Like,
they're spending billions of dollars building islands, building whatever else they're doing over there, and the world's tallest buildings, and it's all coming from the dependency on cars using gasoline and oil.
right?
So if we take that out of the equation, then their influence will be minimized. Sorry.
No, you're good. But what's that going to look like besides just like basically turning into any other like war torn like nation? Because I feel like once
Nothing. Every country or empire has its ups and its downs. You know, everything has to come to an end eventually.
that's the,
No one has ever stayed on the top throughout history forever. There's always been some sort of leader in the world, and then something happens, and then the main players in the game shift around in their positions on the board.
how long was Rome like in like actual power? I feel like it was either 1,000 to 3,000 years, but just think about that. Let's say let's shoot let's minimal 1,000 years. The U.S. has only been around for just barely 200 years.
Right, that's nothing. In terms of some of the dynasties in China and Egypt, for how long like those families would lead for.
I especially with the way that technology is progressing, I can't see the United States being set up the exact same way as it is right now in let's say like 400 years or even 50 years.
That's so crazy. It looks like in 753 BC, Rome was founded by Romulus, and all the way to fast forward to 1453 AD, the Byzantine Empire ends. So there's no clear cut start end unless you want to look
Right.
at like Julius Caesar or one of the other leaders. But looks like a little over 2200 years total that the whole empire itself was running before it ended completely.
That's
That's a long time.
that is a really long time cuz think I mean
If I'm wrong on that math, by the way, disregard.
well imagine what let's say the way that technology is progressing. Imagine what 200 years if you could do that 200 years from now what would look like just on the technology side. How
Yeah,
that'll change our lives and then how will that affect like the government? I mean, I don't think the U.S. is probably going to be like how it is like right now in a couple hundred years. I mean, just,
there's no way. I mean, look at the past 5, 10 years alone. Everything has changed so much. I can't imagine in 25 years even we're going to have the same party system with all the
no.
technology progression. We may be in a country ran by an AI for all we know.
I,
What's preventing
seriously,
that from happening?
because I mean, really, there isn't because what if I guess that's a lot of people's fear is what if well it's not a matter of what if but when we create an AI that's actually like smarter than people and then we turn to that to answers and then people start to turn it into like a religious thing. It's like this is God. Like
Right. When it ends up, if it were to reach this point, being a situation where we have this robot, this AI running the country, where people like went to go visit it or had to message it, it's their request, and it like decided if it wanted to honor them or not. That would be a scary time to be in, but it could be for the good because if it can be programmed to have no emotions but still be self-aware and make the right decisions, because then it would never be bought off or have an emotional stake in any situation. It would all just be cold, calculated number crunching.
but what if because there were a lot of people who say like what if something like that is created and then it realizes just through cold hard calculations that what's wrong with this planet are people.
Yeah, that's people repeat that a lot. I can see why, because just drive around. There's trash everywhere. It's all over the beaches. We
Yeah,
have big
we're
factories.
like we're like parasites. You
Yeah.
know, it's like we're releasing these fumes and shit. If ants, if one day you ran across an anthill and there was like black smoke and fumes coming out of that anthill, you'd be like, crush that fucking thing. Like what's going on with that?
Yeah.
What if the AI thinks that same thing with us? It's like, wow, they're. I mean, I'm cool. Like that's this is the AI thinking. It's like, well, I'm just like electronics. But like, what if like it notices all of the other like actual like pollution going on and says that's got to be taken care of. So and how
So
do you
what's
take
the
care
source
of
of
that?
that?
What's the source of that?
Yeah.
People.
It goes up the chain. It realizes it's all because people use products and things and eat food and leave the wrappers everywhere. And
I mean, this is like a real discussion that people are going to have.
yeah, it's
I
gonna
mean,
happen.
not me. I mean, I don't think I'll have any sway either way about any
Yeah, I don't-
artificial intelligence.
Yeah, maybe people at the top of Intel and
The
some
people
of
at the top,
yeah, Google, Facebook, the people making the big
Elon
decisions.
Musk,
Exactly.
Michael Jordan, the guys at the top. Dude, I actually remembered. I meant to bring this up a while back. So there's this story that I heard about. It's a story. I don't want to say it's a theory because
What's the source of this?
I don't know exactly where the original source is from, but I saw it on Reddit.
Okay,
So
we'll take it in for entertainment.
yeah,
since we don't have
yeah.
a real source.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it more of a short story.
Okay, I gotcha. So it's not really a scientific fact. It's just
No,
something
no,
funny
no. It's
you
no,
heard.
it's there's no scientific basis in it whatsoever. This is just one theory out there among many theories of human origin.
Okay, just like multiverse versus
Right.
so on.
So the story, it reads as a story. It was just some dude wrote it as a comment in reply to someone else. So the story starts out with there's this guy. He's in his mid-30s and he's in a vehicle with his wife and kids. So his two kids are playing in the back seat and his wife is in the passenger seat and he's driving. They're on the freeway and they get into a car accident. The father dies and the wife and two kids survive. Fast forward and this guy, he's dead. He wakes up in this purgatory-ish type area and he's like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? And then this creature comes out of nowhere and comes up to him and the creature says, yeah, you died in an accident. And he's like, fuck, I'm dead? I'm really dead. And the creature's like, yeah. So the guy starts to freak out. He's like, well, what about my wife and kids? Like, how are they? So the creature says, well, your wife and kids were initially very upset about you passing away, but they eventually moved on. Your wife remarried. She lived her own life and she died too. And then your kids, they grew up to be successful. They had kids of their own and they eventually passed on as well. And at this point, he's like, well, what happens now? Like, and he started asking even more and more
So
questions.
by the time he came aware at this point, that much time had passed that his wife had got remarried and so on. His kids had kids.
Right.
Okay, so he was just blacked out, and then he came to be like that far ahead in purgatory.
Yeah, so like what I'm getting at is really like there was no like his sense of time was off because really the sense of time to him it meant nothing. So he's basically asking these questions to this being because he's like, I don't understand, like how long has time passed? And the creature's like, you're not going to understand because you're human, you won't understand this. And the creature is like, well, are you ready to go back? And the guy's like, go back? What do you mean go back? And he's like, well, I don't want to I don't want to go back. I mean, am I going to be with my wife and kids again? And the creature's like, you don't understand. And the guy's like, I mean, of course I don't understand. I mean, am I going back to see my family or am I going with a different family?
Right, like a new life. Completely.
Right. And the creature, he asked the creature, well, if I'm going back, who are all those other people? And the creature says to him, they're you. And at this point, the guy is even more confused. He's like, well, how am I those other people? What about my wife? He keeps going back to his wife and kids.
Right. He really wants to see them.
Well, because that's at this point, this is all he knew.
Right.
So the creature says, I told you that you wouldn't understand. And the guy's like, well, then who are you? And the creature says, I'm your mother. The guy's like, what do you mean? Well, what about all those other people? And the creature says, that's what you don't understand. I created all this for you. So every time you go back, you learn a little more. And then eventually, once you've lived thousands and thousands and thousands of lives, I guess you come to a point where you have reached pure I can't come up with a good word for it, but pure knowledge,
Yeah,
pure
you've
happiness.
achieved everything you can achieve.
Correct. And then that's when your life starts on the other realm.
So this repetition of our lives over and over that you keep getting sent back to and you live a different, path of events, that's just training every time until you come full circle and eventually you can go move on to the next stage in that life.
Right.
That's intense.
So one of the main things, I guess, in that story was, in that perspective, there's no difference. Like you and I, we're like the same like spirit, because when that person dies, he might come back as you, he might come back as me, because we live different experiences. So he might learn something from yours, he might learn something from mine, he might learn something from your neighbor.
My cats.
Your cats, your washing machine, like anything.
The tree outside your door wall.
Could you really imagine if that? I mean, personally, I hope that's not it, because that would suck to just keep living like life. Hopefully, like when all's said and done, like
I mean, as long as you're not aware of it.
I guess.
Because then you wouldn't even know. But if you know, like you wake up and you're like, oh, like now I'm a fox. Yeah, that could get old very quick.
Because
if that was the case, though, this would have to be our first iterations because we don't remember.
Well, how do we know? Because, I mean, this could be our 100,000th of time. Like we could have even been early humans.
Oh, no, yeah. I agree. I'm saying if it was the case that you could remember between cycles, then this would have to be our first. Everyone would have to be...
Well... Maybe.
Well, it would have to be an amnesia type effect if that was the case.
Maybe. Well, think of it this way. Well, besides for outstanding factors like beyond our control,
and like you are what you know too, like people around you and stuff.
Right. But what if, beyond those outstanding factors, the choices that you make within those factors? So maybe those choices are what we have learned from, and this is
decisions.
Yeah. So,
gotcha.
Like, what if situation X, where you're at a party and you've had a couple of drinks, your car's there, you could Uber home or you can drive home. Let's say the first iteration of your life, you drove home and you got into a car accident and you died, or you killed a couple people and you spent the rest of your life in prison.
Right. Next cycle you go back, you don't remember it, but then you decide to take the Uber.
Right. So what if
then you learn that decision tree,
exactly
the right decision in the right moral, I guess you might say.
So what if just going back and back and back, like let's say if you and I had a past iteration, then this might be the most successful our iterations have gotten. Like, what if before our past iterations never graduated high school and
maybe ended up in some trouble, went to jail.
Right, but in these newer iterations, we try to do better. And I'm talking about like we could have been like peanut farmers in like the 1800s, or I don't know, just something way out there. It doesn't have to be anything, to what we would recognize today as normal.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna take a little bathroom break. come right back.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Here.
It's caught my eye. The wind blew the screen door open. I thought
Really?
someone was opening it for a second.
It was Kiki.
Yeah, let's keep it running. Let's go right back.
Kiki. Well, while he's taking a piss, I'm gonna load up the bong a little bit more. And he's probably gonna listen to this. Skirt, skirt, skirt.
Very smart idea. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so back sitting down. You all ready?
Yes.
Okay. Had to take a little break there. So what else did you have on your mind to talk about?
Really, nothing really. I just a couple of things that I've watched in the past week or so that really caught my attention was the podcast on U.S. history and the ending of aging. Those two things really like stuck with me this week. Like, cause I mean, well, they're both such like different topics, but I feel like the ending of aging, like, that's
I don't know how I feel about that, but I would definitely be for it because there's always going to be external factors, unfortunately, that can hurt
Right.
us and harm us.
right. It wouldn't be the end of death.
Yeah, and then that doesn't necessarily rule out disease or any other sort of virus or condition. That's just aging.
That's that's how they kind of described it. Basically, I mean, like that would have to mean like the end of just like diseases.
Ah,
Yeah, because I mean
because that's kind of what has a big factor in wiping people out.
because I mean that's the only factor because
Well,
people
sometimes you just grow really old and your body, like you said, is just worn down. The pieces are just really
People-
fatigued.
so there this was a surprise to me too because I guess I mean there is no real just dying of old age. Some part of you has to fail.
Yeah, it's
And-
usually like a heart failure or something goes on.
And when that happens, it's because of a disease because of your parts not being like as young and as like useful as they were, they're not able to fight them off anymore. That's why you see a lot of old people die of like the flu and like cold, just it's stuff that wouldn't really affect like
Right.
like a young, like person.
Because their bodies just can't fight it or just bounce back from an injury like falling and breaking
Right.
a bone because their bones are more brittle, less muscle fiber.
Even your like skin too. Like
Yeah.
it's like if
It's like paper thin, you can get cut easy.
yeah.
It's
Like,
just not a good place to be when you get past like 80, 90.
Everyone wants to grow old, but no one wants to be old.
Yeah, everyone wants to grow old just as everyone else. Obviously, they should.
Right.
Because you can get a lot of memories and good times in your adult years, but for me,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
actually, I feel like it needs a reload.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a good hit in there. But what were you saying? I'm sorry. Aging.
Ooh.
Everyone wants to grow old.
Oh yeah, everyone obviously wants to grow old just so they can enjoy their lives and not have it cut short. But no one really wants their bodies to get all frail and lumpy and saggy. That's just the part of the equation, the yin and the yang. You have the longevity, but you end up with the saggy body.
That's like another story that they actually said within that little video, Kurzgesagt. It was a story of some a creature or some mythical, being that asked. Oh, it was I guess a old Greek mythology story. So I'm not going to pretend to know any of the characters besides Zeus. So two smaller gods. One
I know there's Zeus and right Isis.
there's a bunch, but
Yeah, I'm not
for
gonna
the
try
context of
either.
this, like, so it was Zeus, and then one god, and then one person who did not have like immortality, like her. She goes up to Zeus and is like, "Hey, can you make him immortal? Like, I mean, I kind of like him.
Right. Hey,
I
can
don't
you
want
keep this guy around forever?
yeah,
No big deal.
yeah. I don't want him to like die. So Zeus is like, oh fuck yeah, all right. So
Yeah, what does he have to lose? Why
yeah,
wouldn't you?
yeah. It's like, ah, fuck it. So but here's the thing, she was immortal too, but she stayed the same age, whereas he technically, was immortal, but kept actually aging, but it just didn't kill him. So as she stayed the same, like basically, let's say she was like 32 years old. So he was, 32, but still actually kept aging as any other person would, but just didn't die. And then it turns into a whole like, oh, he actually like shrank to the size of like a peanut. He just like couldn't do anything. He's just withered up, but
He
he was still,
basically just disappeared.
yep, but he was still technically alive.
Wow. So he didn't tell him the fine print of
Right.
the contract.
Right. God, that would see, but that's one important point that they brought up was the way that we're dealing with aging now is we're just replacing parts and fixing things here and there, but people we're still growing old, so we're living longer lives, but it's not like we're living like the most optimal lives, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, you can live to like 90, but from like
With like 1,000
70 on,
machines
yeah, from like
hooked up to you.
70 on, it's gonna be shitty.
Yeah, like who wants to spend 8 years beeping and having a bunch of people like change your change your bedpan and
It's
catheters?
funny now, but like when we're that old, we're gonna be like fucking shit,
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, what if it's totally possible before then they actually figure this shit out and do something about at least that
Ah,
that
I hope
aging process.
that would be a pro on the side for technology and humanity.
But if they do, now one big question and like factor that's going to be huge is who has access to this. Is it just the top of the top, or does everyone? Because if it's just the top of the top, that's not going to be sustainable. People are going to fucking riot. Like,
What about
yeah.
overpopulation as well? Because
So,
less people dying, there's still going to be people having kids.
well, here's the thing. With this is, I guess, one of the reasons why some people believe that population growth is actually not going to be a problem. I saw this on some video too. But
Yeah, it's supposed to level out supposedly
Right.
around like 12 billion people worldwide.
because the way societies progress is when, as the standard of living goes up, the less kids that people have. Because if you look at some animal species, they have a lot of like a big litter of kids or turtles or whatever, and only a fraction of them survive. So that's the reason why they have a lot. But as societies progress, so take like a third world country, there's a lot of child mortality rates. Like kids die young.
Right,
So
because kids sometimes get certain diseases and
right,
conditions that adults don't, and you need specific medicines.
especially living in shit conditions. Like
Bad water.
go back to the time of like the Black Plague, like early European times. So they would have a lot more kids on average because on average a lot of their kids would die. So really, let's say they had like a family had 6 kids, only 2 of them might actually survive. But as the standard of living went up, people started to have less kids because their kids would survive.
Right, when you're in a cabin in the middle of Kansas and you're raising a bunch of animals and have a farm, you're gonna maybe have 8 to 10 kids because you want workers that are gonna help you out and take care of you when you're older. But if you're in some condo in Chicago with like air conditioning and like nice couches, you might only want one or two.
All right,
Why would
so
you have 6 kids running around?
so if you lived till, let's say, 150, 200, there would be no, and that was just like the standard, like basically just what we have now, a progression of healthcare and people living extended lives. As the standard of living goes up, people are going to have less kids. So if you think maybe in that future, time, which may not be that too far in the future, maybe people are only having just like, it's really strictly one kid, and maybe that won't really affect overpopulation as much as we would think.
Who knows? It's all a big question mark, I guess. Technology is having a big influence on everything, so the next 10 to 20 years should be interesting.
I know, but well, hopefully, no one does anything stupid to fuck it up for everybody, because that would suck. But if there's no huge catastrophic world, either through climate change or human unfortunate work,
Yeah, like human caused catastrophe of some kind,
a
like
nuclear war,
yeah,
or
ruining the climate through some sort of maybe nuclear
or
war.
asteroid. Hopefully, if some sort of event does not fuck up our progression, we may be able to reach these standards of livings.
It's possible. Thankfully, we haven't experienced any traumatic events anytime recently in human history to the level of like an asteroid impact that takes out a whole civilization. But
Yeah, knock on wood.
that would be insane to see how the world bands together in some event like that with our level of technology and tries to combat it. I mean, would we try to blow up the asteroid? Would we try to evacuate and share countries and have everyone just pack in together? And I don't know.
I guess, I mean, let's say that there was an asteroid, coming. I guess it would just depend on
And the
how.
warning window.
Yeah, how much of a warning? Because well, one thing that I found out recently is a lot of people who talk about gloom and doom with asteroids still being able to hit the Earth. Yes, it's possible, but many of like the bigger like actual like civilization ending ones, we would thankfully be able to see before they're coming. We would still like there's still chances of asteroids hitting the Earth and us not knowing, but those ones are usually like too small for us to notice. That's why like we don't know that they're around.
Right. They probably would just burn up in the atmosphere or pass by us and maybe, just hit some field somewhere, mountain range.
I mean, they some still might cause some damage, but I'm talking about like civilization
Yeah.
ending ones, like those we like.
Tidal waves and
Yeah,
lightning.
we'll see those coming like before. But I mean that doesn't like just because we see them doesn't mean we'll be able to do anything about it.
I mean, like, hey, there's a gigantic rock coming at us. Like, what are we gonna do about that?
Well, let's just see what's on Netflix now. So, I just let someone else deal with it. But I mean, look, if that were to happen, do you really think that? I mean, that would be common knowledge. Like, let's say that there was an asteroid going to hit in like 20 years. 20 years. Do you really think that immediately, or actually even
There's
further?
no way they would tell us at first because they would immediately go to planning and R&D to figure out some way to eradicate it,
Yes.
push it away, blow it up, something, just before they announce it to the public.
Because if you think about it, let's say there was an asteroid big enough to really fuck us up coming, and we had 10 years to and let's say there was only an 80% there was well only I so there is an 80% chance of hitting, 20% not hitting. So really it's gonna fucking hit us. And let's say they've got like a 10-year window. For the first 9 years, 360 4 days, they're not going to say anything because that 20%, let's say they say we're going to get hit by an asteroid. Sorry guys, everyone's fucked.
Mass turmoil.
But then it doesn't hit.
And then the world's screwed up.
Yeah.
There'd be riots everywhere. People would be killing each other.
There's no guarantee that civilization would go back to, oh well, everyone, I'll see you at work on Monday.
Hey
Like,
Jim, it's a hot one. He's getting in his car.
yeah, no, I can't really see.
No, it'd be savages running the streets, burning buildings down,
So yeah, so I really,
like The Walking Dead.
I really don't think that they would say anything
Unless they had to.
Yeah,
It was
the very last second,
just to
had
give
to
people
type of
time
thing.
to, take care of their final business.
Yeah,
Do whatever they gotta do before, everything goes black.
but really, I mean, let's say we knew that the Earth would be destroyed or some world-ending thing happened, and we knew about it a month from now. I mean, I wonder. I'd like to think that everyone would just be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just try to make the best of it. Everyone enjoy their last month or so. That wouldn't happen. Civilization would break down. No one would be going to work.
No,
So-
I mean there would be some interesting people that would be like, still gotta do my duty, and they'd want to go like to their post office job or something.
Right, just to keep like normalcy. But
Right, just because that's how they handle or deal with the stress. But most people would be going insane. There
yeah,
would be like cars being stolen, people being shot, maybe even sword fights. Who knows?
honestly, if I'm sure out of the couple billion, 7 billion people on the planet right now, if I guarantee at least 2 people who knew that it was going to end in a month would want to get in a sword fight, and they would easily be able to find someone else who want to get into a sword fight
Like
to the death.
Craigslist posting, Los Angeles.
Someone would be able to find probably like a next door neighbor who also owned a spare katana. It's like, hey, you want a duel? I mean, like we've had our issues. We've got a month left to live anyways. You want to just duke it out? Sure, Jim.
Like, yo, meet me at the John Hancock building, top floor in Chicago. I'll have my katana.
And then they just duke it out. I'm sure. I'm sure.
If the world was actually ending, that is far from the craziest thing that could happen.
Right. I mean, honestly,
This is all hypothetical.
that sounds pretty fucking civil compared to what actually might happen.
Yeah.
Because it might not be, hey Jim, do you want to just hash out our problems with a sword fight? It's, hey, no, Jim, I'm killing you. I'm stealing all your food. I'm raping your wife.
Right.
Like shit's done.
Oh my
like
God.
like you fuck with my lawn one too many times, dude. Like that's it. Like
Goes over, starts kicking his car over and over. He's like, I hate seeing you every morning.
like
Lets out his true feelings.
it wouldn't be peaceful. But hopefully we don't have to experience anything like that, and everyone's neighbors are still just happy.
I hope. That's one thing I enjoy is normalcy. Just normal behavior. Just every day
But-
it goes smoothly, relaxing, being able to spend time with your loved ones.
Me too.
When any event comes up of any sort that's not fun, it's instantly just puts me in a bad mood because I'm like, this is just going off the course of good things and
But
bad
shit-
energy, but
Shit, that's life, dude. Like,
Yeah.
because one day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna see a missed call, have a voicemail, or 8 text messages that tell you some bad shit happened while you were asleep.
I
Some-
get weird with those phone calls. Like, if I get a call from anyone that's maybe not like you past like 9 p.m., I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Like, who is calling me at like 11:30 at night? Like, if it's a call from my family at 1 in the morning, there's no way that's good.
yeah. No, there's
Those
nothing.
4 in the morning calls that wake you up when you're like reaching over trying to find your phone. It's ringing on your nightstand, and you're like trying to look at it's like a random number.
There's
That's scary.
there's nothing like those unexpected family phone calls at 2 in the morning telling you to go to the hospital. That's not fun. So no one. But here's the thing. I mean, no one's immune to that. Everyone's gonna have to experience, like, whether they want to or not. I mean, there's no avoiding it. So it's like when bad shit happens, you got to roll with the fucking punches.
That's why it's important not leaving people on a bad note if possible. Because in those situations, like what happened that night before, maybe you were in a bad mood, or even if you had a great night, you just decide to not return their call 2 days ago, and then you just go to bed all cozy. Then you wake up to that 4 a.m. call, and nothing you can do about it, but it just
Yeah.
reminds you that you never know when something's going to happen to someone, unfortunately, and gotta always keep all your loved ones close, keep in contact. That's one good thing about technology is being able to like have your entire extended family like on your Facebook and
That's what look. That's what really bothers me when people don't carry a cell phone because like they get smug. It's like cell phones are supposed to be for my convenience. But dude, wouldn't you want to like know like be around and be available if an actual emergency happens? Like let's say you're living with your girlfriend and for some reason her phone's broken and she's at the or your someone's phone's broken or either way you have an ability to contact them but you left your phone home because you didn't want anyone calling you that day
right.
and
You wanted your alone time. And
that was
it.
the only and you were the only person that could theoretically help like let's say your significant other had like some crazy form of like diabetes and like needed help administering their like insulin and they you weren't there and just because you didn't feel like like bringing your phone with you just because it's for my convenience. Like wouldn't you want to just be able to be contacted in case of an emergency where you would be helpful?
Definitely.
I mean, it's one thing if like okay, like let's say you move away and the only realistic way you could help out in a situation was a plane ride home, like in a couple hours or something, or like the next morning. Like let's say you live in like Australia or something. I mean, okay, I can understand like having your phone like not being a huge priority, but like I mean, if you're just around like all of your family and friends, I feel like at least for emergencies, I'd like to have a phone with me. So I think it's like selfish when people don't at least have some sort of way to like contact.
Yeah. Another thing that's another positive in my mind is video calling because it's not the same as being in the room with someone completely. You can't give them a hug or anything like that, but just the ability, if say you have to move to, Los Angeles, Portland, somewhere for work, and your parents are in, New York or some other state. If you have like an iPad or, Android tablet, something like that, or your laptop, you can see your family and talk to them and show them things from around the house and kind of be in the room with them and gives you a closer connection than just hearing their voice through that little speaker on your ear.
Imagine going back to basically any point in history before like 1980
Yeah.
and saying, hey, one day, especially before I guess they were like even like phones, so it was basically like letters. Like imagine being able to get into contact and be able to see a person. Like even describing it would seem weird to them.
Like, oh, you look at this, slate of glass and filled with microchips and different components encapsulated in a plastic case.
And you
And
can
it connects
see
through wireless waves to a router that passes, bits through your internet.
not even
connection.
getting that deep. Just saying you'll be able to see someone across the planet just by looking at a device you can hold in your hand. They'd
Yeah,
be
that
like,
would be mind-boggling for them.
you start saying routers and they'd be like are you like what language are you speaking like I
Like, which?
they would burn you. They would burn you.
They start throwing stones at me.
But that's
It's my parents told me this story once just to show how times used to be different, where my dad was up at this cabin up north, and for whatever reason, I don't know if they were in school, but he got up there first, like the day before, and I'm pretty sure my mom was driving up there herself, and there was no phone contact. Obviously, there was no cell phones.
right.
So like he just got there and waited. Like you just had to like assume people were gonna show up. There was just that trust that nothing went wrong. Otherwise, you kind of would just wait for a couple of days and be like, I guess something happened. There was no like, you got to call right away on your cell phone like, hey, this is so and so police department, something. You just sit there for
Right.
2 days like having a hot chocolate, and then Next thing you know, someone comes knocking on the door unexpectedly.
That is that. I mean, could
You
you
know,
imagine just going back to?
even let's go way back. Like, can you imagine even like the 1700s? Like you're just in your little hut, wooden house type situation, and someone just bangs on the door, and you're like, "Who is it?" You just have to yell out the door, and it's like some random person. Like, there's no identities. There's no like.
That
You
is.
know, there's no Facebook or anything back then. There's no ID card. Like, show me your credentials. What is he gonna do? Just hold up his sword?
Yeah. Like, he'll have a sword with the inscription of the local community service or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that guy's.
Bridgetown police.
Yep, yep. And then he'll
It's
be like,
written in,
well,
like-
I gotta let him in.
Yeah, Old English.
God, I really would not want to go back in time and live and live in that time. I feel like that would fucking suck.
I agree. I wouldn't mind like a capsule where I could jump to different points in history in the past and obviously look at different things.
That would be
but I would
cool.
not want to be stuck or grow up in those times. No.
No, just think. Okay, if let's say you move back to not even that far, like 1830 U.S.
Okay.
If you were Irish, if you were Italian, if you were anything besides just like a like
English person.
Protestant,
Yeah.
white dude who owned land, like you could basically get fucked.
Right.
You know.
You probably lived in some little squat, like, I don't even know if that's
And-
a
and
word.
even
Some dirty
then-
little house community type situation of all your other local immigrants, probably.
Even if you were in the what they would describe as regular U.S. citizens with full rights, everything. Good luck when you get sick. There's still some fucked up healthcare. Like
Yeah, there is no healthcare. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's still a shitty time to live, no matter what.
Yeah, no. The best time to live is as far ahead as you can go, which is now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is the best we have.
Besides,
The best technology, the best healthcare,
agreed.
the best everything.
Besides for going ahead in the future, this like I wouldn't rather live in any other time besides now.
Right. Some things are lost, though. I think there is a interesting, just different aspect or feel to life when you kind of just had no phone and, you maybe went up to a local bar just without even thinking about it and just talked to random people. There's no sense of open community like that at all anymore.
There's
Like, if you go to the bar by yourself, it's just going to be a bunch of little groups of people who drove up there, Uber there together, who's just going to look at you and be like, why is that guy by himself?
that's always like God, that's always gotten to me because you watch especially earlier movies
Like,
and
yeah,
TV
you
shows.
go to the bar and there's some girl just sitting by herself there, and it's like, oh, hey,
Yeah, it's like what the fuck.
you from out
Okay,
of town.
or like people go like I was watching this like documentary ish thing about the crime mob, like just the mob, the mob. And there was this undercover agent who he spent I think it was 6 months going to the same bar and talking to the bartender just regular with no crime or anything, because I mean they didn't know each other. Like this bar was just supposed to be like a hot place for like mob activity, and this dude wanted to build a nice little repertoire, So he goes there, and after 6 months, he like talks to the bartender about some shady shit. So even actually now that I'm talking about it, I forgot what even brought this up. What were we talking about before this?
I don't know. Just keep going though on this.
All right, yeah,
This
okay, well,
tangent.
yeah, I'll keep going. So, he after 6 months, he finally speaks with the bartender, and the bartender sets him up with some sort of weird drug deal or some some illicit,
Shady
yeah, some
situation.
shady situation, illicit activity.
Something where it sounds like you're definitely going to get arrested.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I mean, it works out for him, and eventually he I guess, is one of the first people to actually be made. Like an undercover agent was made. So I guess
Oh,
that
I think I watched it. I think I watched that same documentary as you.
I hope so. Shit, maybe you can help me out.
I don't know his name, but I do remember that exact same line being said in the documentary that he was like the first agent
Yeah,
to be really truly brought into the inner circle of the mob.
that must have been scary as fuck.
That was the guy who got started doing like runs right on the street, like
Yep,
really low
small time
level,
stuff. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
just like deliveries and cars and stuff. And eventually he worked his way up.
He so I remember they they had to make it like believable. They couldn't just have some like Joe like any dude with no talents or anything, because I guess like in the mob like they wanted people who could like do shit, that could make people money. So he went to like uh, I don't know what the name of the school would be, but it's a school to learn all about diamonds and how to shape them and cut them, and just to learn about just jewels and diamonds. So he went to school for that for I think like a couple like years, if it months to years, whatever, however long it was. But he was basically an expert thing in jewels. So he went there saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a jewel thief. I'm really good at being able to tell what's expensive, what's good, what's real."
He had an eye for it, basically.
All right,
He could just look at it and know what was legit, what was high end.
all right. So he did all that just to be able to say that in the mob, and then I guess that's how he started off, and then eventually I think eventually he like left because they asked him to like kill somebody. He's like, "Fuck!" I mean, like I can't do that.
Yeah, like that's. Oh, I do remember that was
Yeah,
it. That's where he sort of made his break for it. They had that big bust on the guy he was working with,
yeah, yeah.
and I remember they had the interview excerpt, and he's like, "I had no idea." He's like, "He was just one of the guys."
Yep, yep, yeah. I thought that he was like one of us, but yeah, because I mean, if you were an undercover agent, I mean, and they asked you to kill somebody, I mean, you can't. I mean,
It's messed up because on one end of the stick, gain a man's trust and probably had some good times with them that were legitimate, like
yeah,
hanging out,
yeah,
probably
because
smoking cigars and stuff. But then in the end, like you are in your apartment or in your house with your family, and he's in jail, and you're not really who you said you were.
that's what he was saying. He was like, man, I really didn't like want to like really like ruin like everybody's lives, but because I mean like some were
It's just
like
his
actual
job.
like cool dudes to hang out with, as weird as that sounds. But I mean not even that, because look, not you think of the worst people ever, they're not 100% evil 100% of the time. I'm sure.
No, there's a few complete psychopaths out there with no remorse or feelings, but those are really few.
But true, but I'm sure even those people maybe take at least some solace in maybe a good morning shit or something.
Maybe.
Because look, otherwise, if I feel like if there was like zero, not they couldn't get anything from anything. Well, like, shit. I mean, I guess I'm not an expert in mental health, but I don't know. I feel like someone would have some sort of happiness if sleeping, even if it's just sleeping. I'm not awake. They like sleeping.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Being a sleep enthusiast can be something that makes you happy, I guess. I don't know if this is the guy we were thinking of.
fucking Jack.
Joaquin Jack Garcia. I think so. That was the guy we were referring to with the first
Let's
guy
see.
he made.
The Gambino crime family in New York City. Garcia is regarded here. Is there a picture of him? Try
No,
try to find a picture, because yeah, you just go to images.
I can't remember.
No.
Yeah, that looks familiar. But
Oh, that's I would be able to recognize the dude that we were talking about, and that's definitely not him.
yeah, it must be someone else. Anyways, um,
We'll never know.
yeah, we'll never know. But unless you watch that documentary,
Yeah,
then you'll
yeah.
know.
I guess. I guess.
Or you can look it up on your own and find it. Well, should we wrap this up?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is fun. This is fun.
Agreed. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, always a pleasure.
We'll see ya.